from the crypt.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Welcome to episode 98 of Dads from the Crypt. My name is Jason. I'm joined by Jody.
Hello.
And Mondo.
Hello.
And tonight we are joined by Jamie and Ryanne from the Black Girl Nerds podcast. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello.
How are we doing tonight?
Good. Thank you for having us.
Yes,
All right.
thank you. Fantastic.
Thank you for coming. Tell our listeners about your show.
Yeah, the Black Girl Nerds podcast is a weekly podcast. We are on all of the streaming networks where you can find and listen to your favorite podcasts. It started back in March of 2013. My name's Jamie. I'm the founder of Black Girl Nerds. Ryan is pretty much our flagship host. I used to do a lot of the hosting in the early days, but as you build and you grow a brand, you have to get some folks on board to help you build it. So Ryan's really taken the reins and hosting a lot of the episodes, and we do interviews and we go to on-site events like Comic-Con every now and then and do on-the-spot coverage there. So yeah, you can listen to our episodes every Monday is when we drop new episodes there. And Ryan, I'll give it over to you because you really do the bulk of the podcast, and people that tune in, they hear your voice more than they do me.
Yeah, well, yeah, so we do, like Jamie said, every Monday we release new episodes, and it's just a good time. Like, we get to do so much variety, as far as, like, we'll bring in authors, we have TV shows, whatever's current, whatever's streaming now. We try to make sure we bring the cast. We have a lot of wonderful interviews on our YouTube page. Right now, the box office is taking all of our money, so I have a ton of live reviews that we got going on the Black Girl Nerds YouTube page, so go check those out. But yeah, so, while Jamie's out on the ground and out the festivals and, killing it all over the place, I try to hold it down with the live reviews and recaps because it's just all about getting these diverse voices and Black women's voices out there in genres that you don't typically hear them in, so it's a good time.
Yeah, I was listening to your latest interviews, and yeah, you got a lot of great ones that I need to get up on. Because you're just at the American Black Film Festival. We'll talk more about film festivals in a little bit, but yeah, a lot of great stuff, a lot of great talent coming out of there. That was really cool.
And your latest one, right, is an interview with the director of Jagged Edge?
Jagged Mind.
Jagged Mind, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, Kelly Colley. So kind of in line with horror. It is a horror thriller that is currently streaming on Hulu, and it's really good. So if you're into horror thrillers, and also it's through a queer lens, which is great. Right now it's Pride Month, so if you're looking for like LGBTQ cinema, definitely check out Jagged Mind, and that's now streaming on Hulu.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was wondering when it was out because, that sounds very interesting from that interview. So I want to listen to that. Yeah. Tonight, though, we are talking about 90s horror classic, Tales from the Hood. Came out May 24th, 1995. So again, we're doing an anthology movie, so we're going to break it out by segments so we don't wear Jody out. Why don't you go ahead and give us, start your plot synopsis.
Okay, so let's start with the wraparound. We meet three guys, Stack, Bell, and Bulldog. They are drug dealers, and they go to this funeral home because the man there says he has found some drugs in an alley and is going to give them to him. And then he starts telling stories about the bodies in the caskets, and those are our segments. So that's the wraparound. It's pretty simple. We'll get to where it goes at the end, but yeah, it's a good setup. We've got the mortuary owner is one of those characters that you will never forget, for sure.
Yes. So that's played by Clarence Williams III, and talk about a story career. My God, he was in the original Mod Squad for many, many episodes. He was in Purple Rain, Maniac Cop 2. He was in Twin Peaks. He was even in the Tales from the Crypt episode, Maniac at Large. And of course, he was in Half Baked. among many things, but that's the one, probably the one that sticks out the most to me because I love that movie. And he hams it up so much in this. We'll get more into that part, but he's up there with the Crypt Keeper, like as far as amazing host performances.
He's
Such
got
a
this
sweaty, intense performance. He's so sweaty.
he's got this great aura of like sinister playfulness. Like you can just tell something's there, but you don't know it until the end. And he's phenomenal in this.
And
Okay.
I've back in the day, Comedy Central used to play Half Baked, I think about every third hour. And so I've seen Half Baked more times than I can count. He's just one of those guys. I love seeing him pop up in anything, but especially his performance in this is just fantastic. He's the highlight for sure.
Right. And then the other characters, the three guys, Stack is played by Joe Torry. He had a big arc in ER back in the day. He was in House Party 3, Poetic Justice. Ball is played by DeAndre Bonds, who was in Gangster Squad and Snowfall. Bulldog is played by Samuel Monroe Jr. He was in Menace to Society and Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood.
Which is a classic movie too. It's also a classic.
If you're into 90s silly comedies, that's right up there. It's the most ridiculous title. So let's roll into the first one. Jody.
Okay. All right. So our first story is called Rogue Cop Revelation. And it's about 4 cops that are out, 3 white cops and a young black cop out on his first night. He's a rookie. They pull over a man who is almost like a civil rights advocate or a political agitator. His whole thing is he is taking down corrupt cops.
I think he was actually a councilman.
Okay, yeah. So he was on the city, but his whole thing that he was trying to do through his position was to get corrupt cops off the street. And obviously, these guys are corrupt cops, and they don't like that. And so the white cops start beating him up. The rookie tries to stop them briefly, but one of the guys says, like, this is the code. You don't talk about these things. And they say they're going to take him to the hospital after beating him up. So they leave the rookie with his partner, and then they take him and throw him in the river, basically put him in the trunk of the car, inject him with drugs, and throw him in the river. A year later, the rookie has quit. He couldn't keep going after what he saw that night. And he is getting dreams or visions of the councilman saying, bring them to me. And so he brings them all to the graveyard. And in the graveyard, at his grave, he gets his revenge. So we'll talk about what that is in just a minute, but great setup.
Okay. Jamie, why don't you start us off? What did you think of this segment? And we can do spoilers, so dive in.
Yeah, feel free to spoil.
Okay. Well, I want to piggyback and talk about Clarence Williams III really quick because he is absolutely brilliant in this film. And yeah, we see this wraparound story featured with him in the beginning. So whenever I think of Clarence Williams III, I always think of Tales from the Hood. So I just wanted to say that, number one. This is a good segment. Out of each of the segments of Tales from the Hood, this is sort of in the middle for me, but it definitely puts a highlight, and that's what I love about the Tales from the Hood film and these little vignettes, is that it does the thing that we didn't really see, or that we're seeing now rather, in the Black horror genre, is it's crossing socioeconomic issues with the horror genre. And it's talking about like police brutality and really touching on those, social injustices, while also scaring us at the same time. But it's like this reality of like a real scary thing wrapped around the horror genre. So you get that in this short story, and we're seeing that highlighted more. And people are, heralding movies like Get Out, like, oh wow, this is such a phenomenon, but Tales from the Hood kind of
Yeah.
touched on that
Yeah.
many years ago. So yeah, absolutely great storytelling on this one.
Ryan?
Yeah, I had never seen Tales of the Hood before. I've seen like all the actors. Listen to you go through the list. I've seen them in other stuff that I've seen, but I've never seen Tales of the Hood. So when I was checking this out, I was the exact same thing that Jamie's saying. You watch Get Out, Us. It's like they could have had a playbook just watching this of some of the concepts that they pulled out and put into those movies. But just to keep it honest, when I first saw this segment, I was pissed. I was like I was ready for the revenge part of it, which I know is probably the point of it. So I think it hit really hard off the top, which I'm pretty sure that's what the director was going for, to make a statement about, police brutality. If you have Black cops, that's a lot of things that are going on right now, and they see this kind of brutality. What do? That kind of stuff haunts them. Like, how do they feel about it? So I think it was an interesting way how they kind of hit us right off the top with this. And I also wanted to point out something too. In the intro, I thought was interesting was there was like a skeleton with like a bandana on, like he was a gangster with a cigarette in his mouth. I was like, oh, we're in for it. As soon as it opened for that, I was just like, oh my gosh. So it's already setting the tone for like the kind of lifestyle they want to point out, and you could just take it anywhere as far as like a conclusion that you draw from it.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the intro, but I really enjoyed that. It reminded me a lot of like the Batman '89, where it's like that real extreme close up, and you're not sure what it is, of like these group stuff, and then like pulls back to reveal it's the bat signal. This is kind of felt like that a little bit, because you're not sure exactly what you're looking at until it pulls out. Like, yeah, there's a skeleton with with a bandana and a gun and everything. You don't put all the pieces together. And also, one thing I want to talk about is that the score of this is really good. But
It is really good.
Christopher Young, who did Hellraiser and a ton of other classic horror movies. But yeah, what's interesting to me, I've seen this a long time ago, and I know, I'm sure I was like more focused on the horror parts and didn't really pick up on the commentary or kind of the setup. But it really hit, the first part of this segment really hit me, because it was horror without even needing anything fantastical. Especially because you had this very campy opening with Clarence Williams like chewing the scenery, and you're like, okay, I'm settling in for some kind of goofy humor, and then it just hits you with this like really strong, dramatic, really well acted, horrifying sequence, really. And I just wasn't kind of prepared for that, and I think that's kind of what the director wanted, was to hit you kind of with a 2x4. And then you have these cops who start pissing on this guy's grave, and then a hand comes out and grabs him and pulls him into the grave by his genitals, and like, okay, now we're getting there. And we got this great zombie sequence. It's just really, really fun and like satisfying to watch these guys just get ripped to pieces.
Yeah, all of these segments kind of start with a real life horror, like something that is actually scary in real life, and then take it into the fantastical, So like, I feel like it has a lot of impact, because every single setup is something real, and it's something that is actually scary that could happen to real people. And then you kind of get that fantastical side of getting revenge on those people. Every single one of these stories most of the stories are a revenge story.
And we're used to like the classic EC comics, where a group of people meet an eccentric figure, and that eccentric figure tells them 3 stories of people done in by their own greed or lust. But that's usually but this is much more prevalent, much more in your there's something this hits me a bit differently, and maybe it's an age thing.
Well, part of it's probably the fact that this movie was made in the 90s, and every single story could have been told today and still been relevant. That's kind of the depressing part of it.
But you know what? This film really resonates because, like you said, it takes real life horror and then brings it into the fantastical. And I think that that's what really attracted audiences. It didn't try to condescend to the audience at that time. It didn't try to make it really campy, because let's keep it real. Black horror, especially back then, some of the movies just weren't that good. And for us as Black audiences, we didn't have a lot of good films to pick from. Tales from the Hood is like the cream of the crop when it comes to Black horror, especially back in the 90s. Because I remember like there were movies like Death by Temptation and
Mhm.
like Leprechaun in the Hood.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, these movies were terrible. And then there's the ones that go into these really, even though Serpent in the Rainbow was very well done, it kind of falls into this trope about, you know, voodoo and all of that. And that's another conversation for another day. But you know, Tales from the Hood just really nailed it as far as just the quality and just what really horror represents for our community, for our audience. So I just really appreciated that. And we're kind of seeing remnants of that today in some of the current horror that you're seeing, like movies that just came out this weekend, like The Blackening.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, it's also interesting because 2 weeks ago we covered a movie called Ritual, which was shoehorned as a Tales from the Crypt movie, which takes place in the Caribbean, and it's really not good, and it goes into every bad stereotype you can imagine. So it's so interesting coming off of that, the bad taste that had, and coming into this is like a fresh of breath of air.
Yeah, much like you guys, I watched this the first time when I was very young, and I just had fun with that. I thought it was fun, but watching it again for the first time in forever, like like hit really, really hard, and it's pretty sad that it could have been made. Like Jody said, it could have been made today, and nothing's changed in 30 freaking years. Like we still deal with it, we still see the same shit in the news, still the same shit happening around the world that happens in this film.
Well, I think one thing the filmmakers did really well is they take those real life horrors, and then once they get into the fantastical, it becomes really fun too. Like this is not like, while the real life situations are depressing, this is not like a depressing movie to watch. Like you can kind of like pump your fist, you know, it's enjoyable watching where these stories go in the end. So it gets both. Like it's got the social commentary, but also just like fun horror. Like in this one, you know, you got heads getting ripped off, you got, you know, explosions, and this crazy thing where the last corrupt cop becomes like a mural on the wall after getting shot with like flying needles. Like it's really cool. Like it's fun horror.
And I thought it was a nice touch that they also punished the person that he's saying you could have spoken up. Why didn't you speak up? Why didn't you do something? And he's now in an insane asylum and charged with all these murders. Like you said too, I think the protagonist in every one of these episodes is the supernatural. Like what's normally the villain or the scary entity is kind of the protagonist in all of these segments too, which like you said, Jody, kind of makes you want to pump your fist because you're rooting for the you're rooting for the supernatural.
Yeah, no, whatever quote unquote evil thing is happening, you're on its side 100%.
Yeah. The evil is earned. I wouldn't even call it evil. It's retribution.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, just to break down the cast in this one, Wings Hauser plays Strom, who is the kind of ringleader of the cops. He was in the episode Freddy's Nightmares and Beastmaster 2.
Oh, what a great name.
I know. Well, no, that's because like he was really good at football apparently, and so they called him Wings. So they took on that as a stage name.
I didn't know you flew in football. But that's fine.
There you go. Well, there's a position like called the wingback. It's a whole thing. All right. The community activist council member is played by Tom Wright. He was in Creep Show 2, Troop Beverly Hills, and the Tales from the Crypt episode Abra Cadaver, one of Jody's favorites.
Good episode.
Let's see. Clarence is played by Anthony Griffith. He was in Charlie Angel's Full Throttle. He's also an episode of Masters of Horror. And just so everyone knows, we do tend to focus more on the sci-fi horror projects. That's kind of what we focus on when we do these. So I'm sure we're skipping over lots of other good movies. Now, let's see. The other cop, Newton, is played by Michael Massee. He was in The Crow, Seven, Lost Highway, and Catwoman. One thing, not to bring things down, he was in The Crow. He's actually the one who had the gun and pulled the trigger that killed Brandon Lee.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So the fact that he
live with that for the rest of your life.
I know.
Yeah, no kidding.
And he went on to have this, like, he was still in a lot of violent movies afterwards.
Not to bring things down, but let me talk about this tragic event.
Yeah, I know. Okay, and then the last cop is played by Duane Billy. He was in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. He was in Pulp Fiction.
Duane Whitaker.
What did I say?
Duane Billy.
Oh,
his character is Billy.
Too many words for me to look at. The spreadsheet has gone too big. He's also in Puppet Master 5, and I guess he's become a bit of a Rob Zombie favorite. He was in Devil's Rejects, Halloween 2, and he was also in Feast. So yeah, overall, again, I love the zombie effects in this. They're really cool. I love a good big explosion, and you could see like a stuntman staying on top of the car, kind of falling forward. Those are the kind of things I love to see in the movie. So
the effects in this movie are really good for 1995. Yeah. Like there's a little touch of CGI, but most of it is practical stuff. It's really good. Like just
you can tell they had a good
filmmaking.
Yeah, they had a very impressive budget to do all these things. So
good
on them for that.
I thought the voice of the zombie was fantastic. It was so creepy. But I do got to call shenanigans when he shoots like 2 bullets at the cop car and it explodes.
Oh yeah,
that was great cheese.
It was the 90s.
Yeah, those 90 cop cars were full.
He had good aim. It's so sorry.
Cars being made of like pure nitroglycerin is one of my favorite tropes in movies. So they just one shot, boom.
Right. All right.
I also like being able to see the beaker in his stomach. I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
That was awesome. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I love a good zombie. All right, Jody, next.
All right, our next story is called Boys Do Get Bruised. And a little boy named Walter is starting at a new school. And his teacher notices that he's starting to, like, he gets picked on by some of the kids and gets in a fight. And the teacher notices his eyes black. And he asked him if the kids did that. And he said, no, it was the monster. And then the little boy continues to show bruises. The teacher continues to notice them. And he always says, it's the monster. And nobody will believe me about it. He says, if you told your mom, she didn't want to hear it. So we already had to move once. And so he keeps talking about this monster. He's drawn a picture of it one day. And because one of the girls in class has told him if there's something that's scary like that, he can draw it and then tear it up and burn it. And that will kill whatever this monster is. And so the teacher goes over to his house one night to talk with his mom. And while he's over there, that's when we discover what the monster actually is.
Mondo, what did you think of this one?
This one's heartbreaking. This one is the one that really got to me because like anytime you see abuse, it's difficult. It's difficult for a kid to go through that, and especially when you feel like the pain of the teacher too, who's kind of just all he wants to do is help, and he knows he can't help when he's kind of handcuffed by this. David Alan Grier is terrifying in this episode, and like I don't remember him ever being terrifying in anything, but holy crap, does he play this role amazing. And with the angle of domestic violence in is very, very tough to watch. This is a very difficult one to get through. But again, I love though the ending and the drawing, and as he crumbles it together, and you see David Alan Grier's arm breaks, and the effects on this are just fantastic. And then the end when he's just crumpled into a little ball on the floor, all torn apart, but still in the classic abuser sense, still can't even get over himself at this point. That they've gotten the best of him. But I thought this is probably my favorite of all of them. I don't know my favorite as far as like I didn't really feel that great after watching it. But this one definitely had it hit me kind of deep. Because again, I don't remember any of these segments being that deep when I was 13 years old watching this. But being 40 years old and watching it, I was like, man, and especially being parents, that was a very tough one to watch, but a very, very great episode or segment.
Yeah, Ryan, what'd you think?
Yeah, this one was definitely a tough one. This one though for me allowed me to escape more into the horror element of it before the heartbreak came, because you saw a little boy drawing the monster and you're like, okay, something's wrong here, but you can't quite place it yet. And as soon as they have the confrontation in the kitchen, everything, like all the pieces that you've been gathering, like why he says monster, he has a monster tattoo on his arm. The sound effects with the door when he comes through the door, like every time he wants to come, beat his son or whatever, he's going after the wife. The sound effects are insane. Like you would think you actually have this monster in this house, which he is, but you get to escape in that horror part of it before you're like, oh God, they need to get out of this house, before it gets really into, what I mean? Like you get to escape in that for a little bit, and you're like, what? This boy is really being attacked by a monster. Are they going to do anything about it? Because you don't know he's at school, he's just drawing pictures, and you're like, what's going on? So I think this one for me like allowed me to really escape into it before, you know, the real life society element hits you at the end of it. So it kind of draws you in a little bit more. So I don't know if it was my favorite, because like you said, it's a little hard because it's very heart-wrenching, but it's very well played the way it's laid out.
Yeah, because what I realized as you're talking is that most of it's filmed from the boy's perspective. Mm-hmm. So you're seeing it through his eyes. Like even when he's sitting on the stairs watching, you're kind of seeing it from his perspective. And then again, when quote the monster is there, you see like a claw coming through. Mm-hmm. And then even when David Alan Grier walks in the frame, you still hear like a monster voice. So again, you're hearing how a child is coping with that. And again, as father with little kids, you wonder how they hear things and how they're perceiving things. And yeah, especially in David Alan Grier is just so much known for his comedy, and then this is just like he just drops all of that comedy, that pretense, and just becomes a completely different creature. It's bone chilling.
He's terrifying, man. Like, damn, like I don't want to meet this guy in a dark alley.
Yeah, it's kind of like when Robin Williams does like Serious,
right? Yeah, no, I knew David Alan Grier mostly from In Living Color, and so this is a very, very different kind of David Alan Grier. But I thought it was really well done. And again, like Mondo said, those special effects at the end of him just like bending and folding and crumpling. And I appreciate the revenge was slow in this one. I think I had to take their time and take this dude out because he deserved it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I read that the effects were done by Screaming Mad George.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense.
Who did like the roach effects in Elm Street 4?
Yeah.
In Society,
and
a ton of other
shunting
classic effects. Jamie, what'd you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I think that theme that we've been talking about so far is like the real life elements of dealing with real life situations moving into the fantastical. And like the first one was about police brutality. This one's more about domestic violence. And then like towards the end, as everyone's saying, we're crumpling up the paper, and then David Alan Grier's character goes into those different kind of motions, and his arms and bones are bending around. It felt very cartoonish to me, but not in a bad way. It just, that was sort of the entertaining part of this very kind of sad story, or very sad story, really. But one thing that was very interesting is David Alan Grier, also for me too, he was coming off of In Living Color when he had done this. So this is like the first time I had ever seen anything dramatic or even scary from David Alan Grier. So kudos to him in this performance, because he really nailed it in this. And I know we're going to go over all of the actors and their bios, but Rusty Cundieff, who's the director, is also makes it like a cameo in this. And he is known to do a lot of cameos in his own films. So I liked seeing him also in this. So yeah, this is my second favorite. I'll tell you what my first favorite one is, but this is my second favorite out of the vignettes from Tales of the Hood.
Yeah, so let's go over the talent. David Alan Grier, who was in Boomerang and Living Color, he was in Jumanji, and he has a new movie coming out. I just saw the trailer called They Clone Tyrone, which I watched that trailer today.
It looks good.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I've seen it.
You seen it?
Yeah, it was at ABFF. So.
Nice.
David Alan Grier is really, really good at it too.
Okay, well, that's gonna be a Netflix movie. So
yes,
I'm excited for that one. And then let's see, Walter the little boy is played by Brandon Hammond, who's a menace to society. He also played young Michael Jordan in Space Jam, and he was in Mars Attacks.
Wow.
He was so good. Like for a kid actor, he was really good.
He was really good.
Just the expressiveness in his face, especially when the monster was coming, and he was a really good kid actor.
Yeah. Let's see. He said Rusty Cundieff, who was also the director. We didn't talk about him at the top, but he directed. His first movie was Fear of a Black Hat. He did many episodes of Chappelle Show, and he did 2 episodes of the Crypt Show series as a director. As an actor, he did 48 episodes of Days of Our Lives.
Wow.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And he was also in the Spike Lee School Days. And then the mother, Paula Jai Parker, she has a very big resume. She was in Friday, the Wayans Brothers TV show. Don't be a menace to yada yada. Okay, I'm not going to try to say that all again. She was also in many episodes of the Weird Al show. She was in Hustle and Flow, and she's also had a big arc in True Blood. So she's a very versatile actress. I liked her a lot in this.
She's a good actress,
yeah, heartbreaking episode, but really, it's one of those, like, it's hard to watch, but it's also really, but it's easier to watch because it's so well made. As well, I'll say about that to wrap it up.
No, definitely. And I think part of like Ryan said, I already knew. I remembered. Oh crap! I know who the monster is when the segment first started. So I couldn't have that fanatical thing because I already knew, like, this poor kid. I want him to tell his teacher so bad who was doing this, and
For a while, I thought it might be the mother. I wasn't entirely sure. I figured it was some adult at home, but I wasn't sure which.
But and that's the worst for a kid, right? He doesn't have he's getting bullied at school. He doesn't have his escape at home. He doesn't have an escape at school. Like, the poor kid's just stuck in the. And we didn't mention it, but I do love, though, when he first draws a picture of the bully and like folds it in half or whatever, and then you see him move away in a gurney.
Right, and then the other teacher's like, must have weak bones.
Come on.
I'm sorry they didn't have like a milk advert like in the background somewhere.
Lord.
All right, Jody, bring us next.
All right. So, not to spoil anything, but I think this one might be my favorite. This one is called KKK Comeuppance. And we start with a racist Southern senator who is very open in his racism. And he has moved into a Black neighborhood so that he can run in that neighborhood, in that district. He moved into a plantation home that was the former home of a slave owner who, when the slaves were set free, he did not want them to be free. And so he had every single one of them killed. And so this was a house full of murder. But it had been owned by another woman who kind of wanted to honor those who had died there. She was, they say she's a voodoo woman. I don't know exactly what she did, but the story is told in the neighborhood that she put the souls of those people who had died into dolls. Now, the senator is just doing this to, because he likes it. He likes the house. He likes the look. He actually likes the look of the racism. He's a former KKK member. And he says he's never seen any of those dolls. He wanted to find them because he thought he could sell them. But the dolls do start appearing. There's a real cool picture of her with all the dolls up on the wall. There's a really cool effect of the dolls disappearing as they appear in the real world. And those dolls, aka the souls of the former slaves who had been killed, get their revenge on the Southern senator in a very satisfying way.
All right, Jamie, why don't you start us off?
This is my favorite one. I love this one. It's my favorite because it's the scariest one. Their doll horror movies frighten the hell out of me. The Annabelle movies, the Chucky movies, like those doll movies, even Megan recently, like they scare me. So when I first saw this and those dolls and the way they're so animated as well, I'm guessing they use stop motion for the animation.
Yeah, they look like stop motion.
It was a mix of rod puppetry and stop motion. It was done by the Chiodo brothers who did Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh, nice.
That is another movie. If y'all ever do a podcast, I would love to talk about. I love that movie.
We should do that. That's a great movie.
Yeah, we absolutely should.
I love that movie. But yeah, I love the dolls. Corbin Bernsen, he was amazing in this. I mean, he's an awful character, but he plays the character so well. There's actually an ad on Facebook that promotes these dolls that look a lot like the dolls in this movie. And
ironically,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Is it ironically or unironically is the question.
I know. I'm like, what is this? I'm scrolling really fast. But yeah, this is such a great story. And it's just so well done. It's so well told. And it's just so frightening. Again, there's just something about dolls and the way they look and their eyes, and they're turning around real slow, looking at him, and the way the dolls attack him. And then there's sometimes where it's a little funny. You're like, they're a little hopping on him and stuff. But yeah, it's brilliantly done. And yeah, it's definitely my favorite out of all of the stories in this film.
All right, Ryan.
Yeah, it was mad creepy. Like, I started looking at my Funko Pops real sketchy. Like, I was like, yeah, because I was like, that was insane. And then like the little feet you could hear across the floor. I'll be like, nah, like, I don't even know. Like, I understand it was like the hardcore racist, like, no, I'm not going anywhere. And he's got like an N-word every other word that he's gonna say. But dude, when the little dolls start coming out and you looking up at the picture and ain't nothing on the picture, like, I'm trying to figure out why he's still in the house. Like, it was crazy. And he pulls out the shotgun and he's like shooting it. Like, you already like shot him. I think he threw like a dart or something at him and he came back. And I was just like, why are you still there? Like, I was like, I could, it's just like the racism that you can't let go, where it's just stupidity at this point, where you just like, okay, just go ahead and get him to his end so we don't have to watch it anymore. But yeah, and when they all jumped on him and started tearing him apart, I was like, he deserved it wholeheartedly. I was like, go for it. But at the same time, I was like, no, because it was just like blood everywhere again with the effects. Like, it was so scary the way they did it. So yeah, I was kind of afraid to be sitting close to my Funko Pops like I am right now for a little bit. It took me a amount of time.
All right, Jody.
Yeah, like I said, this is my favorite segment here. I love anything with little monsters in it. Like, I don't know what it is about little monsters, like not even dolls necessarily, but like gremlins or like critters or Puppet Master, just little bitty killer things. Something about them is really fun to me. And yeah, you get, these really cool puppet animations. The designs of all the puppets are really cool. And again, you have this character who is so despicable that by the time the horror starts, you're like, okay, this is scary, but I'm also kind of for it. Like, I'm on the little doll side because this guy's awful. But yeah, it's really well done, really well acted. Corbin Bernsen does a fantastic job as this terrible character. But yeah, no, I have no complaints about this one at all. It's just a fantastic segment.
Mondo.
Yeah, it's probably my second favorite. And if history has taught us anything over the years, it's that white people love living in haunted houses. Like, there's nothing going to get him out of that house. That's Amityville Horror, all that stuff. Everyone could just move.
Right.
Right? I could come from a guy who lived in a haunted house for almost a year, but my parents' decision, and they're Mexican. But what are you gonna do? But yeah, this is a great segment. Like you guys said, the puppetry or the stop motion, I loved it. Everything was so creepy. I loved seeing the painting constantly missing the dolls. I love that Corbin Bernsen got what's coming to him. That guy deserved the worst. And again, we talk about how like this movie could be made today. Fucking, we're still voting for racists today, and no one seems to care. But and I do like too, like the whole kind of the symbolism where he's trying to kill the puppet with the American flag.
Yeah.
But the puppets ain't dying from that. And then at the end, when they're trying to jump on him, he covers himself with the American flag, like that's gonna save him. And they still tear him to pieces anyways. So bravo, great segment. And damn, this is a good movie.
Yeah.
I remember liking this movie. I remember it being good, but I watched it last night. I was like, at the end, I was like, God, that was a great movie. I'm still, it's making me happy talking about it again.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get to see a David Duke stand in, just get ripped to pieces, it's just always satisfying.
Maybe the reason I like this segment so much, I still live in the South. I live out in the country ass part of the South too. So these are the like local representatives, and it's kind of nice just to have that little moment of like the guy who I see in the friggin' Walmart, who I know is like my state senator, and I'm like, that motherfucker. Like, it'd be kind of nice.
The political map of Tennessee is all red, and then a blue dot on Jody's house.
Yeah, there's a blue dot on my house, my parents' house, and then Nashville, Memphis.
Yeah. All right, let's do the talents again. Corbin Bernsen was originally Bernstein, that they changed it when they moved. He was in Major League, The Dentist, and The Dentist 2.
Great movies.
Yeah, he is great. He's really unhinged. If you want to see him even more unhinged, check out those movies. He was also in the episode.
It gets worse. He gets even more unhinged.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Oh man.
Crazed Dentist.
If you have a fear or an apprehension of going to the dentist, do not watch those movies.
Okay.
Those movies are cringe-inducing because it's all teeth through the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, hard pass.
Okay.
I had my first cavity ever, like a month ago or 2 months ago. I had my first cavity ever,
Oof.
and they drilled it with no Novocaine.
Oh.
Just because
man.
it's so my best friend's wife is my dentist, and she's the best person. And she goes, if it hurts, we'll give you too bad. We'll give you Novocaine. If not, just see, because if not, because it's on the surface, I don't think it'll be too bad. And it wasn't bad. But I finally, for the first time in my life, realized why people don't like going to the dentist, because you just hear that drill sound in your head. I'm like, oh, it took me 40 years to get here, but
for me, the thing about going to, if especially a cavity with a little drill, the worst part about it is you can smell your teeth burning. Like there's a smell in the air from that drill. It's terrible. I haven't had many cavities in my life, but every one I've had, that's been one of the worst parts of it.
That didn't bother me, but I also got to smell my eyes burn when I got LASIK. So
okay.
Okay.
Not to dissuade, LASIK's amazing, but you do smell your eyes burning, and that is a little weird.
It is a little weird. Yeah.
All right.
Jeez.
Okay, so his political consultant, which I don't know if we mentioned, is played by Roger Smith. He was also in School Days, Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X, and is also in Final Destination.
Huh.
And then the kind of harbinger, the crazy Ralph of the episode, is played by Art Evans, who was in Fright Night, School Days, and Die Hard 2. So what's interesting about this?
Rusty Cundieff, his parents actually are in this episode as well.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I was going to mention the woman in the chair at the end, the ghost, is played by his mother, and the pastor at the funeral.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
and his father is the priest at the funeral.
Okay.
Wow.
He had mentioned something like how his mom's super introverted and his dad is like outgoing, but his dad froze up on camera and his mom was just supernatural.
Yeah. This episode was by far the campiest it was camp from start to beginning. That's just my 2 cents. Yeah, it's all fun. Like we said, dolls and little things don't do too much for me, but it was still fun. And again, anything Chiodo brother effects is top notch.
Yeah, no, the little horrors aren't scary to me. They're more fun. Like I just like the invasions of little monsters of various kinds.
All right, Jody, bring us to the last episode or last segment.
The last segment. All right. This one is called Hardcore Convert. And it was a little harder to follow than some of the other segments. So I'm going to do my best to synopsize this one. So it starts off with a series of shootings from various gang members. One guy shoots one guy, and then another guy, or that guy shoots the guy who shot him. And then guys come from out of the house and start shooting, and the cops come and they start shooting. There's a lot of shootings going on. One of the guys who gets shot is named Crazy K. That's what he goes by. And as he's laying there on the ground, the police arrive, and he's badly injured, still alive. They take him to the prison, and he's going to go for a life sentence. They put him in a cell right next to this super racist dude who basically is saying like, hey, we're the same. I like to kill black people and you like to kill black people. Like that's kind of the theme of this one, is that gang violence is supporting white supremacy because you're doing exactly what they want you to do. And so he gets drafted into this experiment that's supposed to change his behavior. And what they show is a series, like they strap him down to a table and show him a series of images of violence against black people, particularly white supremacist violence. So a lot of lynching, and these are real pictures too. A lot of lynchings, a lot of police pictures, very unpleasant stuff to watch. But it's supposed to make him see that he is doing the work of white supremacy by killing other black people. But unfortunately, Crazy K sticks to his guns. He does not want to change his life. He says, he's gone through things too. He sees like all of his victims, including like a little girl who got shot through the wall of her house when she was just up in her room. He refuses to change. And so we go back to that moment when he was laying on the ground bleeding out at the beginning, and he gets shot, surrounded by three faces who we do not see at that point, who shoot at him and kill him in the end.
Okay. Mondo, what'd you think?
This is a good one. This probably is my least favorite out of the bunch. horror wise though, I it always gets me when you have that isolationist horror, when he feels like when he's trapped in this never ending nightmare, that kind of, I mean, granted, just a very justified nightmare that never ends. The imagery tough to watch, and I think it's meant to be. It's definitely meant to be. It's and the end with the little girl coming up and saying, well, yeah, you keep saying all these people deserve to die. Why did I deserve to die? I was just sitting in my bedroom. Like, that kind of hit, you know, coming that kind of hit hard too, because you hear about it all the time when these poor innocent victims die in these situations, and it's just rough. And then of course, I love how at the very end though, how it wraps back around to being part of the wraparound, with him getting killed by the current drug dealers who are in the mortuary. Probably my least favorite of them all, but that's not to say it was bad at all. That's just saying there are four, you know, they're all amazing segments, and one has to be my least favorite, and this one just happened to be it. But everything, and the doctor was great. I thought she was played fantastic, and almost being like the angel of judgment, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, good segment.
Like Jamie.
Yeah. So I've not seen Tales from the Hood in quite some time, but it's one of my favorite films, and I've seen it many times over the years, so I can still have this conversation with you guys. But there's still a line that Rosalind Cash says in this film that still sticks with me, when she says, he slayed his brother, and how many brothers have you slayed? And that always sticks with me, because what this film is supposed, or this vignette of all of these different short films throughout this whole feature of Tales from the Hood is to represent, is, I think this is the moment where we have these parallels between the real horror. So we've visited police brutality, we've visited domestic violence, we've visited systemic racism through the political sphere. And now we're dealing with, you know, violence. I guess during that time in the 90s, they called it, you know, black on black violence, but it's just violence. And we're taking that and we're merging it with the fantastical horror element of it all, with these other stories, and merging it into one. And I know that it's probably hard for people to digest, because for some people, arguably, they're probably thinking, well, this isn't supposed to be scary, but it is scary. Yeah. It's a scary thing. And seeing those images, those real life photographs of actual lynchings, and then seeing like civil rights leaders. And I just remember, like, those images still stick with me. And I haven't seen this movie in a while. So that's powerful. Like, when a movie still sticks with you long after that you've seen it, you know, that the director and the creators behind it have done their job, and they've accomplished it well. And that's what this film did. Rosalind Cash was amazing. Rest in peace to her. Rest in peace to Lamont Bentley, who played Crazy K. But both of them did a stellar job, and I like how this ties into the wraparound, and I'll go from there.
All right, Ryan.
Yeah, I think usually before I go to like a slasher horror movie, I'll go thriller, because I think one of the most powerful, scariest things is when you can mess with somebody's mind. So this one definitely stuck with me a lot, because it was, you know, you looking at the lynching and the hanging, like the noose, the hanging from the trees and everything, and just the torment that they've had to face, and, you know, their way of dealing with it, because they have no other outlet, as they think, you know, is violence against each other, because it's this psychological thing, it's this psychological messed up cycle that stays with you. And I like how this is played out. And it starts out as this guy that just, okay, you need to get yourself together, dude. You bouncing around from this prison to this one, you're getting yourself a second opportunity. But, you know, he just doesn't get it. And that's that part that sticks with you, that I know they're hoping that viewers take, is that psychological part stays there. If you don't, you know, if you don't find a way for it, you don't find a way to understand the history of, you know, that kind of torment, it takes another form. And, you know, today we're still dealing with, you know, like gang violences in certain way, and, you know, and that from the past, like that, just the discrimination and stuff that people continue to have to deal with and push through. And how do they deal with that? How do they make sense of that? So yeah, this was definitely a powerful way to kind of wrap everything around, and then to have him lay it on the ground to bring it all the way back around. And he didn't even, you're thinking he survived, he's in this facility and everything is, no, he didn't. You know, it's still like this ever continuous cycle of gang violence that you're like, okay, where is the end to that? Like, where do we stop? So I like how they leave that question mark at the end of like, how are you going to answer it? What do you take away from this? And yeah, like echo, like Rosalind Cash, Lamont, Bentley, like did a fantastic job. Yes, rest in peace. Those are fantastic actors. That it's just like everything in their faces. And I just like how he's constantly like, you're not going to break me. I don't care what you do. You're not going to break me. You know, like he's like the hardest thing ever. And you're like, at some point, you're going to break. But I just like that strength that he shows, and it's him pushing through. And one of the weirdest scenes, I think, of this whole thing that I think will probably stay with me is him being in the cell. You know, with I guess that would have been like a Klan member or whatever that was beside him, and that conversation. I'm like, I cannot imagine like the way I would want to be able to get my, like, be able to have a superpower where I can just evaporate myself to anywhere else besides being in that situation. I can't imagine sitting right beside him and he's like, you know, well, you like killing Black people too. This is what I'm, you know, I just can't, like the things that are coming out of his mouth and you're having to sit there and take that, and just psychologically how that might break you down was like powerful to me, where I was like, okay, they're going for something. Like if you don't get something out of this scene, you know, they don't know what to do after that point. This was their coup de grace. They were trying to wrap everything up from here. So yeah, it was definitely powerful.
Well, yeah, when the main character is relating to the guy with the Hitler tattoo on his chest. But I love the production. I mean, everything you say I completely down with, but the production value on this one was really cool. Really cool sets. The whole like it was very Cronenberg. And it's kind of Cronenberg. If Cronenberg directed Clockwork Orange, is kind of what this made me think of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought Clockwork Orange for sure.
Yeah. So because like you have this whole thing where it's like he's mostly naked, and he's got like electrodes on his nipples, and he's got like this like visor thing, and the room is just like spinning and spinning and spinning. And in the making of, they're like asking like, how fast do you want this to go? Like, well, a human can take this much. You're like, okay, let's go with that. So that's like a great dedication to performance in this. And Rusty Cundieff talked a lot about how gang members will come up to him for years after this movie and said that this segment made them drop, you know, their lifestyle.
Oh wow!
Wow! It sticks with you. It really does.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah. So Lamont Bentley plays Crazy K. He's a regular on Moesha. He also played Tupac in Too Legit, the MC Hammer story that came out in the late 90s. Rosalind Cash, again, classic actress. She was in The Omega Man with Charlton Heston. She's a regular on many episodes of General Hospital. She was also in this crazy little horror flick called Death Spa that's on Shudder. I recently watched. It's about a haunted health spa.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Wow.
That like kills people with health equipment. It's very weird. She plays a cop in it.
It's one of those iconic movie posters I'll never forget. Seeing like a Blockbuster or the video store.
Yeah. So this is a very intense, especially the imagery and everything. Yeah, it really sticks with you, but very powerful message.
This is definitely, I think, the least fun segment. Like there's not like a silly side of it to like make you feel better. It's just, you know, it's heavy. It's heavy what's happening here and the message they're trying to get across. But yeah, like you were saying about the set design, I love sets like this. Like when it's sci-fi, but it's grungy. Like there's something, you know, because sometimes sci-fi is all slick and, you know, looking futuristic. This is more like a grungy, dirty, like they took him down into some kind of pit and did all this stuff on him. And it makes it just extra uncomfortable. And yeah, I thought it was really well done.
All right, and then Jody, why don't you finish up the wraparound?
All right. In our final scenes here, the three guys get angry at the mortuary guy because they were the three gangsters who killed him in the end of the last segment. And they're like, you know, we're tired of you telling us these stories. You obviously know something. That's why you told us that last one. So we want the things we came for. We want the drugs right now. He says, okay, they're down here in the basement. And he goes to the basement. There's 3 coffins. And he says it's in the coffin. So they each go to one of the coffins and they open it up. And when they open it up, they see their own body lying in that coffin. And that's when he tells them that they were shot right after shooting Crazy K. And this isn't a mortuary. This isn't a funeral home. This is hell. And all of this has been leading to them going into hell. And he transforms into this like demon lizard looking guy. And we end in flames at the end.
Yeah, again, another screaming Mad George makeup effect is just everything except for the CGI tongue. Everything
except for the tongue. The tongue, yeah,
yeah. It's like I wish they could just go back and fix that tongue because it just looks so bad.
It was kind of random. Came out of nowhere.
But yeah, that's such a great ending, and I love that they didn't just do the thing where like they have the guys dress up and like lay in the coffin. They actually made body doubles for at least for some of the shots, so they could show the actor looking into and seeing themselves and pulling back. I really appreciate that, and again, Clarence Williams just going at it, and it's just such an amazing like over the top performance that's pitch perfect. And like overall. I think that we as viewers are conditioned to not be hit as hard with some of these horror movies. And this one really kind of goes for the jugular. And I think one of the things that really makes or breaks a good anthology is the sequence of your segments. Like, what do they make you feel? What emotions are they bringing up? So, like, I feel like the first one hits you hard, but then kind of devolves into the zombie craziness. And then you have the boy gets bruised. Again, there's another hard one, but you have a little bit of fun at the end. And then the KKK comeuppance is like camp nonstop. So like, okay, you're feeling like you're comfortable as far as the movie goes, and then it hits you with another 2x4 with the last segment. So like it's like a good album. It knows how to like set you up and like kind of take you for a bit of a ride, and that's what I think this movie really does. And then of course it ends with that punch at the end. So yeah, I think and big I think Rusty Cundieff does a great job. He's obviously a fan of horror, as well as the dramas and the more contemporary movies that he's pulling from. He does such a good job of mixing everything together. It's just really well directed, really well acted. The effects are top notch. The score is really good. Really well made all together. What are your final thoughts, everyone?
I mean, I really wish that, it's kind of like the ride that Universal is giving Jordan Peele right now. I kind of wish that I don't know what studio produced this film, but I wish that Rusty Cundieff got the studio deal that Jordan has right now, where like what we got Get Out, Us, and then Note. Like, it would have been nice to have seen other horror films come out of Rusty's work, because I also saw Fear of a Black Hat, which is like, in my opinion, one of the best like mockumentaries. And I think that his work is stellar as a director, and I think he would have done an incredible job in this genre had he stuck with it. I don't know if it was like politics or if he didn't have the support, but it's just kind of sad that we didn't get more of like, at least whether it's in the form of a sequel or something of this ilk of Tales from the Hood from Rusty. I would have loved to have seen that, because whenever I think of like some of the best Black horror films ever made, this is my go-to. This is the recommendation I always tell people, like Tales from the Hood. It's a classic, and I can tell how old someone is when they say, "Oh, it's Get Out." I'm like, no, guys, no. We need to watch Tales from the Hood. So yeah, I kind of just wish that we could have gotten more from him back then. So
there have been 2 sequels actually that came out in the last couple of years. I heard they're not great.
True.
Yeah,
that is true. I forgot about that. Yeah, probably because they weren't good.
I've seen
that's the impression.
3 was better than 2.
Yeah. I think I didn't see 2, but I saw 3.
If you didn't love 3, you're not going to love 2.
Yeah. Yeah. I forgot about that. Well, scratch what I said about the sequels part.
Oh no, that's
What
fine.
about the Rusty Cundieff?
I do know also doing
sequels with the
though.
original creator.
Yeah. But I think Rusty was involved in those sequels.
He was a producer, and he might have done one of the segments.
He wrote and directed the third one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But again, this is one of those movies
that's what I saw.
This is one of those movies that's very of its time and ahead of its time, if that makes any sense. I don't think it was marketed well. I think people associate with Tales from the Crypt a bit much, which, makes sense from a marketing perspective, but this is also so much more serious than that. And I think the people that did see it were a little confused at the time.
But when also trying to revisit it 22 years later or 21 years later, it's tough. I mean, and people are going to have a certain expectations of what they want. I think he's probably trying to fill that expectation as opposed to doing something he really wanted to do.
You were saying about the marketing. This was actually a first time watch for me. Because back when it first came out, I was kind of afraid that it was going to be more like Leprechaun in the Hood or something like that, like playing on stereotypes and stuff like that, but it's not. It's not about stereotypes. It's actually a very real movie, and so I love this. Like this, it took me 22 years to finally watch it because I had heard that it was better than what I thought it was going to be, but I just had never gotten to it, and I'm very glad I have now. It's really good, a great movie.
And it was also produced by Spike Lee's company, 40 Acres and the Mule. So there's just a lot of good support behind it. But yeah, it wasn't. I think it's taken a long time to find its legs. All right, let's do our favorite segments. You don't have to rank them all if you don't want to. You can if you want. But what's your favorites? So Jamie, I think you had a list already, so I'll just reiterate.
Oh yeah, so the dolls one is my favorite out of all of them. And I already shared why. Dolls, it was scary for me. It was the scariest one. I also agree that it was campy, but I also was terrified of those dolls. So and it was really good storytelling. And Corbin Bernsen's performance was absolutely extraordinary. So there were moments where I hated him, but then there were other moments where he made me laugh. He was kind of funny, kind of a jester kind of character a little bit to me. But yeah, that was my favorite segment.
All right, Ryan?
I think mine is a mix between Boys Do Get Bruised and Hardcore Convert because I think both of those allowed you to kind of escape into the creepiness and the genres a little bit before they really hit you with it. Boys They Get, I still can't get over how I hadn't seen it before, so I still can't get over how you're still trying to put the pieces together and the sound effects and this idea of, to a little kid, that's a huge monster, and this fact that you don't realize that until it kind of unfolds. So and then Hardcore Convert, like the now you can get into some things when it comes to the Black community and the thing of the experimentation and stuff, but it was a sci-fi feel and a little tech to it. So I thought that was interesting that you don't always get to see us playing that genre now. I think some of the newer horror directors are kind of trying to mix it up a little bit and throw that in a little bit, but that was interesting that back in that time period in the early 90s, they took that leap to try to do something like that to prove a point.
Armando?
Boys Do Get Bruised, definitely my favorite one. That was kind of a gut punch that's gonna stick with me. And then the dolls second. I go with Rogue Cop Revelation third, and Hardcore Convent is, again, I hate even saying one is my least favorite because I like all of them.
It doesn't mean it's bad, it's just a preference. Jody?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with the KKK one, the dolls one, as my favorite one. I just thought it was the most entertaining of the stories, but it still had a good point to make. I really liked the zombie one at the beginning too, though. That's another really great one. The zombie effects on that one are fantastic, and again, it's an issue that's still prevalent today. But I liked every segment. There's not a bad one here. Like, and for an anthology to have 4 segments and one of them not be a dud is really impressive because other people can't pull that off. I've seen too many anthologies that one is just terrible, and that they do not have that in this movie.
In a lot of anthologies, you have a strong start, strong end, and then the middle is forgettable. This was definitely not the case.
Yeah, nothing's forgettable in this.
I'll put the Road Cop as my favorite just because the first half just like hit me, and I was not expecting for it to be this real, this serious, and I was just sitting there like, oh my god, this is way more serious than I remember it being. And then we get the zombie, and the zombie stuff is great because it's not just a shambling zombie. This guy is like teleporting, he's using telekinesis with needles, he's exploding. I'm like, this is some good zombie shit. So I was all about that. And then again, props to the wraparound because I thought it's such a classic performance by Clarence. It's just iconic.
I mean, when you think about this movie, that's the guy you're going to remember.
Yes,
more than anything else, you're going to remember him.
Absolutely.
I will say in the sequels, it's kind of cool because I think it's Keith David's in the second one.
Keith David,
and then Tony Todd in the third.
Tony Todd,
Oh, nice.
Doing the wraparound. So it's at least I wouldn't definitely recommend watching the movies, but the wraparounds I remember being entertaining.
All right, and that's our review of Tales from the Hood. Mondo, give us your song of the day.
I just remembered I paid $20 for Tales from the Hood 2 the day it came out on iTunes. I was so excited. Just saying. A song of the day. So I picked a song from the early 90s that is a bit controversial. Was then, is now, for all the right reasons. By the band Body Count. Their famous song Cop Killer. Which came out in 92 and caused up a shitstorm of controversy. And just because it fits in with the theme of this, and Ice-T wrote that song. He didn't write it. Well, he didn't write it as like, oh, I'm actually a person who kills police officers. No, he wrote it because he was pissed off about all the police brutality going on in the United States, which in 2023 still happens all too frequently. And at the time was controversial, and was kind of neat is that the president of his record company, I can't remember which record company he was on, wrote an editorial about it, defending him. And because there are all these calls saying you have to take this CD off the market, you can't put this out there. And he goes, well, if other artists can get away with writing songs called like I Shot the Sheriff, then, and if we can get away with glorifying old gangsters who were killing police officers, then why can't Ice-T write a song about why he's angry with the police? And I love the fact that his record company, in a time when you wouldn't expect them to, actually defended his actions on that. And it's a good song. And Body Count is always a very fun band. And it was kind of interesting because back in the early 90s, it was almost unheard of for this rapper to cross that genre into the heavy metal and Ice-T's always loved heavy metal. And if you ever hear interviews, he talks about like bands like Cannibal Corpse that he loved. He's a big fan of Slayer. He even covered some of those songs. So it's also cool to see that crossover. And if anybody hasn't heard Body Count, at least I'd say the first record was by far their best. But they just put a new album out, I think, last year, and they still tour. So you can still catch them on tour if you ever want to see them. But
I saw them on Warped Tour in like '99.
So interesting, yeah. So I think Cop Killer, and granted, I was 9 years old when it came out, but I still remember it being a big deal and being on the news, being like an edition and everything. But I believe the first time they ever played it, before they ever recorded it, was at Lollapalooza.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So this is a fun little bit of history there. But for any kids out there who don't know who Body Count is, check out Body Count. And it's an interesting read because I kind of read up on it a little bit yesterday just about the controversy. I remember the controversy, of course, but it's kind of interesting to see like all the people that were actually defending it and for all the right reasons. So yeah, Cop Killer by Body Count from their first record, Body Count.
Thank you. And you really can't overstate how controversial this song actually was at the time. Because like I remember it being on the news all the time. I remember watching one of those like remember back when VH1 had like the I Love the 80s and I Love the 90s and stuff like that. I used to watch those things all the time. And one of the I Love the 90s things was talking about that, and they had Ice-T on there. He was like, when the president of the United States says your name in anger, that's pretty heavy, man. Because like George Bush called out this song.
If you say something and it pisses off one of the Bushes, you're probably saying the right thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Just saying. And look at even like in today, right? You'll have an artist which will come out and just not even to say, oh, maybe the police shouldn't be so brutal, and then they'll get like shunned. Like you'll have people out there calling for their heads saying, oh, you can't say that because you disagree with the police. And then here's Ice-T in the early 90s with the balls to come out and make a song called Cop Killer.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mondo. Jody, give us some horror news.
All right. As far as news right now, mostly we're just going to be talking about some upcoming releases and new releases because some trailers have come out, some new movies have released. First, what I want to mention is a trailer has been released for Joe Lynch's new movie, Suitable Flesh, and it looks fantastic. It's like a Lovecraftian erotic thriller looking thing. It's got Heather Graham in it, Barbara Crampton. Definitely worth checking out. It just premiered at one of the film fest, I think maybe at Tribeca. But I am very excited to watch this one. I like Joe Lynch. I like the stuff he does, kind of that indie horror, and he's got a good crew with him this time. And the main thing that sticks out to me is I've heard people say this is a Stuart Gordon movie that Stuart Gordon didn't get to make. And I love Stuart Gordon. And Brian Yunza actually is one of the producers for this one, Stuart Gordon's longtime collaborators. Very excited about that. Other things, we've got some releases on Netflix. There is a new animated show called Skull Island that is a continuation of the King Kong Skull Island movie. It looks cool, got kind of like an anime look to it. I'm trying to see what day it releases. It releases this week though. So definitely check out Skull Island. Particularly, maybe that's, good way to introduce kids to some spooky stuff. Or my kids have seen all of the King Kong and Godzilla movies and stuff like, especially those new ones. And so they'll be excited for more giant monkey. Another movie coming out. Let me find the date on this one. Friday, June 23rd. So just in a couple days from now. This movie is called The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, and it is a modern retelling of Frankenstein with a young black protagonist. Looks really cool. Looks like a really cool movie from the trailers I've seen.
Jamie, have you seen it?
I have. I saw it at South by. It's awesome. And we talked to the director and Leia, who's the lead, and they're great. So definitely if you're into like Frankenstein type films and films that have diverse casts and just new contemporary modern storytelling, it's definitely one to watch.
Is it geared towards kids or is it like YA or is it more adult?
I would say it's more adult because it does get very gory and a bit violent. So yeah.
Trying to gauge which one I should let my kids watch.
Oh.
Yeah, they live with you, so they're older than 5. They should be fine.
A couple other releases that have just recently come out. The Wrath of Becky has just come out on VOD.
That's another good one. I
love the first Becky, so I'm very excited to watch this one.
I picked it up day it came out and watched it, and I was super satisfied.
Is there more Nazi killing?
Yes.
Okay, I'm in.
Yeah,
and that's also very violent as well.
Excellent.
All the preview images are Becky just covered in blood.
I need you to watch that before I see you on Thursday because
okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. And Lulu Wilson is a great actress. Like she's been making horror movies since she was little because she was in like Annabelle Creation and Ouija Origin of Evil. And so I'm just excited to see her, doing more horror stuff. She's a lot of fun, great actress.
Man, I want to talk about it with Jamie, but I can't because I'll be spoiling things. I loved it.
and Sean William Scott is in it, and I haven't seen him in like forever. So he has a very interesting role in it.
He is surprising how intense he comes off because he's a comedy actor, and I think it's kind of cool because they had Kevin James in the first one. You wouldn't expect to have that intensity, and this one, like, I expected some dumb jokes. I'm like, oh no, he is not a nice person.
So is he the Kevin James role in ways?
Yeah,
the leader, like a Proud Boys leader type.
Nice. Okay, I'm 100% in now. Yeah, you
I
just sold me.
want to see Stifler get eviscerated.
And one other one that Jamie already mentioned, The Blackening just came out in theaters. It's in theaters right now. Again, one that I am very excited to watch. It looks great. Jason, were you the one who said you were watching something in a theater and a trailer came on and they made some like joke about Trump and you were the only one who laughed?
Yeah, I was doing a work trip in a very rural area of California, and I was watching Evil Dead Rise, and that trailer came up. And thankfully, it was one of those stadiums that had like the individual seats, the recliners, so it's easy to like be a little bit anonymous. But I was the only one that laughed at that Trump joke in the trailer, and I just kind of like crouched down. And I'm 6'4", so I'm hard to make myself disappear.
Well, welcome to my world, Jason.
So
when
Jamie,
you laugh at a Trump joke in public, you have to look around over your shoulder to make sure nobody comes after you.
So Jamie, what's your impression? What's your quick 30 seconds impression of The Blackening?
It's hilarious. It's a comedy, so you know, if you're into horror comedy genre, then that it's definitely for you. Absolutely.
Great.
It's a movie that makes fun of itself.
No. Yeah. Is it like is it like a horror movie with comedy elements like a Scream, or is it more like scary movie where it's just like straight comedy?
So two extremes.
Probably more like a Scream, because it's not like they're not trying to lean too much into the comedy, cool. But it's it's a nice balance.
I do love the tagline where they can't kill us all first.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the long trope of the black character being the first one to die in a movie. Like, hey, we're all here now. So what are you going to do?
that Trump joke was glorious. So now I laughed out loud.
And it played very well. And I mean, I was actually in a screening with an all black audience. So, but it played well when that scene came up. So it's hilarious. Yeah.
And my last piece of horror news, maybe this is just for me. This is just appealing to my personal interest. But on Disney Plus, they are releasing HD versions of a lot of their classic shorts, like the stuff from the 20s through the 40s, 50s, stuff like that, restored, remastered, including the Skeleton Dance from 1929. That's why I'm relating this to horror. The Skeleton Dance is a great bit of animation. The skeletons are all doing it's just really cool animation, particularly early from 1929. I wrote my senior paper in college about like animation during World War II, and so this is those kind of stories and just some classic Disney stuff, starting Friday, July 7th, and then another batch on August 11th, another batch in September, and then one in October. Because I all these streaming services, they have all their new content and they're making all this new stuff. I like that some of the places that own old things are actually taking the time to restore them and make them nice and put them out in front of a new audience, like Disney. You know, HBO Max should be putting the old Looney Tunes out, but they actually removed a lot of them because streaming companies are stupid. I don't understand how it all works, but they just remove stuff all the time. But yeah, I'm excited to go back and revisit all these old cartoons because I'm a nerd in that way too.
As they were originally shown in their 4K glory.
In their 4K glory in the 1920s. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Jody. All right, we're going to move on to our dad advice, and Mondo and Jody about to hit the road for their Chattanooga Film Festival. Jamie, you're a festival veteran. Why don't you share some advice about, and Ryan, I'm sure you've been to some as well. Why don't you share some film festival advice? What can people expect? What do you recommend people consider when going to a film festival?
Definitely, when you go to a film festival, build out a schedule of what films you want to watch. I personally have in my Google Calendar, I use Google Calendar, and I'll just start putting in what films I want to watch for each day and build my own personal program. And that way I'll get the alerts of, okay, 2:00, I got this screening, 6:00, I got that screening. A lot of film festivals have different events as well, like panels and Q&As. So if you want to do those, you can put that into your schedule. So do it that way to make it a little bit easy and a little less overwhelming on yourself. And, make sure to hydrate because it can get overwhelming at times if you're one of those people that watch like 4 or 5 screenings a day. I don't do that anymore. I've gone back to like 3 is my max. But yeah, that's kind of my little go-to is, just plan your schedule ahead of time before your boots are on the ground at whatever festival that you decide to go to.
Nice.
But one thing I'm really excited about with Chattanooga Film Fest is they are doing a hybrid festival this year. And so it's part on the ground that we'll be going to this weekend, but also they have a virtual side to it. And most of the movies are screening in both places. So if there's something I can't get to because, I need to eat or sleep or, all those things that humans have to do, hopefully I can catch it on the virtual side of things once I get back. I'll make sure anything that is in person only is going to take priority, but Chattanooga Film Fest sounds just like a lot of fun too. There's a lot of parties at this one.
Gotta love the parties.
Yeah.
Those are a lot of fun. Do you guys ever do oh gosh, what's the name of that horror festival that's in Texas?
Frightmare
or
No,
South by Southwest?
not South by Southwest. I've done
Fantasia?
that one. Fantasia, yeah.
I've
Fantastic.
Fantastic. This will actually be my first ever in-person film fest.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, okay.
We're noobs.
You're gonna have fun.
I've been to film festivals. I've never traveled to one because I live in LA or of other towns that just happen to have one.
You just drive 15 minutes and
yeah. You guys went to Blobfest. That's a film festival.
Yeah, I guess it's looser of a film festival, more of a celebration around the movie The Blob. I think I only watched 3 movies the whole weekend. One being The Blob, but that's a blast. Yeah, that's more of an overall just experience, I would say. Than it's not really focused on any not like a film fest where you're watching 5 or 6 screenings after. Yeah, it's more loose. But I can give travel tips though.
Yeah, travel tips are welcome.
Monroe travels all the time.
Don't clap when the plane lands. Don't stand up when the plane
I hate
lands.
it when people do that. That's a pet peeve of mine. I don't know why it is, but it is.
Like this pilot's job every day is to get people safely. He's good at his job. If you clap, I'm basically saying, "Oh my God, thank you for not killing all of us." No, this is what he does every day. When the plane lands and you're not 6'4", don't stand up. Just wait your turn. Don't be a menace to everybody else on the plane trying to get their goddamn bags and get off the plane. When the plane's ready to take off and you're in boarding group 8 and they're calling for boarding group 1, don't stand up and block the boarding lane. This is my
that's
old
probably
man
important.
right.
That's probably important. Yeah.
And be nice to the people that work on the plane. Be nice to your flight attendants. They have tough jobs. They really do.
Yeah.
And for the love of all that is holy, do not take your goddamn shoes off on the airplane.
Oh yeah.
People do that. People do that. I haven't.
Sometimes they'll not just take them off. They'll stick their feet like through the seat onto your armrest.
One of the most
that's gross.
My most horrifying experience on an airplane was I'm dozing off. I travel all the time for work. I go to put my arm down my armrest and there's a bare ass foot. I put my arm on someone else's bare ass foot. My brain couldn't even process what was happening because I couldn't believe someone did that. And they're like, "Oh, sorry. I'm gonna fucking kill you. When you go on this plane, it'll be murder at 30,000 feet up here." Like,
all right.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Ryan, do you have any festival or general traveling tips you'd like to share?
I'm still like a festival newbie too, but I used to do a lot in college. I went to UNC Charlotte and they would have a lot of like film festivals and everything on campus, and it would be about like you have to plan it around your classes. So if you got overwhelmed, you end up sitting in like a small auditorium for like hours, just trying to catch like every film, like all the student films and all that kind of stuff. But I did some virtually like during COVID and everything, and it's mainly about like everybody's pretty much touched on it. You just have to know like what time, be able to plan it out, get your snacks, your hydration while you plan out your schedule and everything like that. So yeah, I'm a big foodie. If I don't have snacks, I get real grumpy. So I gotta make sure I got my snacks and plan my stuff out. So, but yeah,
I'm a big fan
looking
of
forward to it. Hopefully, I'll join you guys in the newbie festival realm one day.
There you go.
Yeah, I've heard Fantastic is the one to go to, though. I've heard that's kind of like one of the best.
I know. I want to go. We've only, as a publication, covered it virtually for Black Girl Nerds. I've never actually physically gone, but I would like to go because I love Texas. So South by is great. I've gone to South by.
South by sounds
but
cool.
yeah, that's a vibe. That's definitely worth going. And they're like their evening showings, their midnight screenings are always so much fun to watch. But I would love to go to Fantastic Fest because they have a really great. It's just a really great genre festival. So one day.
Jason, make this happen for us. You have the connections. And the...
I think we need a few more Patreons to get there.
Can we just make like a $1,000 tier and send the dads from the Crypt to Fantastic Film Fest?
Yeah, I'll get rid of them.
Hey, you can put it up there. No one's got to actually buy into it. Like you can just put it on there, and you never know.
But if they did,
if they did. I'll say that recently did a road trip with my family. It was about 16 hours. And that's if you did it without stopping, it'd be about 16 hours. So from bottom of California to the top of Oregon. And my wife is a genius. She went to the dollar store and bought a ton of cheap little toys and knickknacks and everything, and she made boxes, like surprise boxes to hand to the kids every couple hours to keep them from going crazy. And it worked really, really well. The drive went very smoothly. And all props to my wife for coming up with that or putting that together.
Do you guys trade off driving duties, or do you drive?
I did most of it. Like I would take a break maybe in the afternoon. But I did the majority of the driving.
Do you get mad and people have to stop to pee? Are you one of those guys?
No.
Someone's got to pee, get all grumpy.
I don't mind stopping to pee. What I mind is like if we stop for a long time to pee. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, get out, pee, get back in. We gotta keep going.
See, that's our issue because there's so many of us. If we make a bathroom break, it's going to be 30 minutes at least, and so we try to limit that. Hey, my tip for traveling with kids is if you as an adult can handle it, wake up real early in the morning and get some coffee because they'll sleep. Like they'll sleep through a big chunk of the drive, and that helps.
Though
I usually drive solo, so I can stop as many times as I want, and I also have Gatorade bottles if it gets desperate. Because I've driven through Arizona before when it's like 3 hours to a rest stop.
Yeah, but we survived, and all worked out. All right, well, I think that wraps things up. Ryan and Jamie, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you?
blackgirlnerds.com is the website. You can find our podcast on any of the streaming apps or on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, I think is what they call it now. Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. That's a weekly show. So every Monday is when we put out new episodes. We also have a YouTube. So just look for Black Girl Nerds on YouTube and you can see new video content there. We do a lot of interviews like Bomani J. Story, the director of Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, and so many others. And you can find us all there. And my personal Twitter is at Jamie Broadnax. If you want to follow me there, at Black Girl Nerds on Twitter, and at Black Girl Nerds is where all of our socials are.
Awesome.
Ryan,
my personal Twitter is at November Bear. And there's a lot of like American Black Film Festival stuff out on Black Girl Nerds, so go check that out. As Jamie was saying, and thank you guys so much. This has been fun.
Thank you.
Good. Oh, we lost Jody.
We lost Jody. What a good time to drop out, though.
I know.
I'm done listening to you guys.
He had to pee.
There you go. We broke him. All right.
He has like 8 kids. They're on a schedule. It's fine.
Right. They probably disconnected the router.
Uh-oh.
Okay, well, we appreciate everyone for listening. We would really appreciate it if you would give us a rating and review on iTunes, a rating on Spotify, and check out our YouTube for videos of these podcasts. And with that, we thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Adios.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. You may get it.